Hey guys, still there and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. With a clickbaity title like that, you're probably wondering what the hell is going on in this replay. Well, let me entertain you for the next about 40 minutes, because this is a fairly long replay. While we are on Mod Fight, we are not actually playing a tactical today, or maybe something along the lines of a tactical. It is a 2v2, so you're not dealing with 10 players per side, but the level of income that these guys seem to have is fairly low. Now, this is something. No, seriously, that's his username. This is something. Something is using a Red Dragon's general deck, and he is going to be operating an alpha. I'm not exactly sure what Nawia means, but I guess it means that I'm going here, or something like that. Sorry, you're going to be hearing me say something quite a lot. Sometimes it might be a pun, sometimes it might just be his username, so this is going to be a complicated replay. Anyway, going on to the left side, he is taking, of course, quite a few transports, CSD-90, CSL-56 with command infantry, ZTZ-88A to make sure that he has something bigger than an autocannon to back all this stuff up, Spag over there, and a ZSD-63C. He is assisted by M16A1, who has yet to deploy many forces, because I rather hope that he's not opening up with 2 stacks of whatever sort of ATGM infantry that is. That would be a little bit on the low side as an opening move. He's going to be heading over to the right flank, seemingly also the middle, so these areas should be covered. Now, it is not a 10v10, so you don't expect to see 3 super heavies encroaching on your territory quickly. But you're going to want to have something, especially out here in the open, a big gun, to make sure that the enemy does not push your position easily. Alright, let's speed deployment along a little bit. It's usually not the most interesting phase of the battle, and as you might be able to hear, my voice for some reason decided not to cooperate today. Okay, it looks like they already lost a MiG-912B. I was a bit slow there on the draw to make sure the game slowed down, but I think the jet crashed somewhere over here. You did see a couple of helicopters going over there to Alpha. Now, M16A1 opened up with a couple of T-72Bs, a quad stack of Nonas, a duo stack of active Tunguskas, which tells me that he is probably not that advanced in Wargame just yet. But then again, we all have to learn sometime. He also has 2 Tors on there. Infantry over here is Conqueror's M times 2 with what seems to be a holding force of a couple of Modestrelki. Currently the left side of the map is far hotter. We're already in contact with the enemy. All the ZSD-63s are trying to rush forward to take up position in these buildings, and they're getting greeted by 40 Rima. And the 40 Rima are not really being welcoming hosts, or they're being welcoming hosts of the worst variety, as they decide to immediately take down all the enemy infantry that does come their way. Now, sure enough, he has that ZTZ-88 and the PTZ-89, but these guys are entrenched, they have cover, they have a lot of manpower. It's not going to be easy to uproot these guys. In fact, they're even pushing out further, trying to deal further damage to all the transports, and in the process also panicking the infantry. These guys over here are stuck calm. Yeah, naturally they're not being shot at, but overall that went pretty terrible. He is fortunately on the left hand side of Alpha making a little bit more progress. His 551s are bringing infantry in position. But having your command infantry so far out is fairly risky. Fairly risky indeed. Luzandui are in a position to do something against vehicles that might be spotted over here. For the moment though, we're first going to have a meeting with a couple of more Rima. And as you can see, these guys are not quite maneuvering their vehicles and their infantry into a good position for cover. Now, this shit still happens to me, where I send units one way or another and I just forget about them at some point. I mean, I think that both M16A1 and something are newer players, and that's alright, we all had to start somewhere. So, any hate comments are immediately gonna get deleted. It is no point whatsoever. Anyway, we still have Rima over here. We still got a bunch of Rima over there. And while the Zanshi have made some progress, they're still outnumbered by about 2 to 1. So we got M16A1 over here on the far right with a quad stack of Nonas attempting to assist. What I'm pretty concerned about over here on the right is that we have almost no spotter. With the exception of these two are BRDM2s. And we got nothing heavier than a T-72B. Now, if your intention is not to push on this flank, then that should be enough. If you hope not to get pushed on this flank, then 2 T-72Bs might just be enough to deter the enemy. But overall, it could be a bit of a pushover force. Because T-72Bs, yeah, they have good HGMs. Mobility and armor is fairly good. But throw something along the lines of Leopard 2A5 this way. And the 2A5 is going to have quite the interesting conversation with these two tanks. And will very quickly dispose of them. Now, Blufor is definitely using a lot of air power. You saw a Raven come in. And there was an F-111C, I think, that just came in. As I was discussing the tanks on the right. And Blufor is definitely trying to push as far into this sector as possible. It seems that even the Zwiban, or the Zwihiban command infantry, did take a hit, down to 4 hit points. Rima, though, are pushing too fast, too far, and without further support. So the Lijian and the Luzandui take him out. Over here, though, we are dealing with a pesky longbow, which does get taken out by a Spog, but unfortunately not in a timely fashion, as the Spog has died. Although, that was a fairly cheap Spog, considering that this thing is 150 points. Now, over on the right, we got some movement. M16A1's pushing up with his duo stack of Tunguskas. He should be very happy that that Raven decided to go here and not over there. Because he would have lost, I think, at least half of his anti-air defenses. M16A1, if you're watching this, make sure that you have your AA under a hotkey. And that you can quickly turn it on or off by pressing H. That is the weapon off key. And for your Tunguskas, make sure you turn off the main weapon, so the Twin 2A38M, and keep the missiles active. Because if you turn off your radar, you're not going to get detected by SEED. Speaking of which, something is spotting over here. That's a really, really bold plane. Holy shit. You sent an aardvark against two Tunguskas? Okay then. Well, it worked. It worked. The Tunguskas are gone, but so is the aardvark. Now, with the destruction of the French forces over here, at least as far as we know, and pushing out on the right flank to get a bit more information, we can see a couple of units, but nobody's in contact at the moment. And as you can see, the T-72Bs with their long-range ATGM do some damage, although with the spheres, they do 22. I mean, even the main gun would be enough, but that range is definitely helping. A couple of Humvees are seemingly sacrificial, yes, stealth, try that again. Sacrificial units, which are being driven forward in order to draw out the AGGMs. Oh, actually they're not sacrificial. Oh, you poor things. There were Rifleman 90 in there. Light Rifleman 90. Why would you approach a position like that? That is asking for trouble. And trouble is exactly what he got. Now we got artillery coming in from the back. This is a Smirch. So it seems like he's trying to clear out, or at least start to damage units in this tree line. And he does get a couple of damaging hits in. Something definitely detonated there, and I think that that's the AMX-10s? I think that's the AMX-10 RC that detonated. So yeah, he did get some kills over there. Speaking of kills, what I haven't mentioned yet is that we are playing Destruction. It's 1125 versus 1400 points for Red 4. So currently Red 4 is leading. They get a fairly comfortable map position. Unfortunately, Blue does have a CV over here in Dimitri. Red does too, so nobody's getting the points from that. But if you push forward a reconnaissance unit along these lines, you might be able to find a command unit. And since we already have Artie, we can quickly take it out. There we go. They killed the command unit in Anna, or Alpha, depending on what you want to call it. And with that, they gain the sector. So red now has Fedor, Alpha, and of course Elena, and blue is only sitting on center and Boris. If this lasts for too long, then you're going to find that red 4 keeps flowing in more units. That, however, is not going to happen. Let's just let the situation develop for a second. It's a surprisingly calm battle at this point. That's something I noticed about this fight. There is not a whole lot going on. The guys are pushing over in Anna. And this is when Defis decides to rush forward with Leclerc. Leclerc, of course, takes no prisoners amongst the T-72Bs and just proceeds to move forward. I think, however, that he's unable to actually see any of these other units at the moment. But an Alouette is already on the way to start lighting the place up. And there we go, there's the transport spotted, there's a kill. We got a Q5D coming in. But there is a hefty anti-air response. A Falcon comes in, an F4S, an F4F. And there are a bunch of AA units over there. So the Leclerc might have taken some damage, but the Q5D is done. We need to find out more about what's going on here. Let's zoom out a little bit. What do you notice about Fedor? Because to me it looks a little empty. If that Leclerc wanted to, it could drive down the road. Sure, it would have to contend with the HGMs over here, but you could argue that those are fairly easy to neutralize if you take this road and drive in through here. So this whole area is just wide open to attack. This is terrible, terrible news, because Blufor, if they find out, has the potential to go on a rampage here. Now, it looks like something was scouting. Yes, I mean the user, not like he had some units scouting. This is going to get confusing. Something was getting killed off. Sorry, I cannot run. He lost some of his infantry as he encountered Delta Force. What the enemy, however, has not yet encountered, by the looks of it, is a Z9A. Z9A is capable of dropping off reconnaissance infantry, and that's exactly what he has in here. It's not a stealthy helicopter, although you could argue that. It has these stealthy lines. And for some reason, and I still don't get these, they're still flying with their gear extended. I mean, it is a tiny, tiny detail, but is it really too hard to animate a unit so that if it lifts off, it retracts the gear? Oh well. Back to the battle. Blufor has scored a couple more kills, putting them at 1800 points versus 1650 for red 4. Dimitri is pretty open to... What the fuck are you doing? Do you even know what you're dropping at? Oh yes, he does know. Oops. Move your mortars after firing. Or you might see an aircraft come in and immediately proceed to kill all of your mortars and what I think was a supply unit. Although I'm not sure about that. Yeah. Something might... Sorry guys, something might be watching this video. This is fun, after having just watched it yesterday. We were making all sorts of jokes with that too. Anyway, something, if you're watching this video, make sure you move your units after firing, because those mortars were not getting moved. And Blufor noticed and decided that it was a valuable airstrike. And it was, because they killed off all your mortars. Now, currently not a whole lot happening. This is kind of risky if you're playing a destruction game. But at the same time, I understand, because you don't want to push out too much. If you push out too far or with too few units, then you just lose points. And defending is always easier than attacking. So ideally, Blufor would just consolidate their positions and let red 4 come to them. Especially since they have a disadvantage. They have fewer units of income. And with that, they can deploy fewer offensive units, but not for lack of trying. Florak pushes forward with 6 Humvees. Please tell me that these things are abandoned, or I'm going to feel very sorry for the infantry. It does look like the infantry has all dismounted. Stingers, what I think is Delta Force, and something else. And no, this time it was not a reference to his username. Delta Force pushes forward, murders one of his transports. Luzandui are trying to hold them back. Currently working over the Stingers. And next is going to be Delta Force and the Humvee if it gets too close. And it seems to want to get close enough. But these guys at this range can only fire back with a machine gun. This thing, however, cannot only fire back with a machine gun and just plows through the whole field with a 14 500 kilogram bombs. So that probably wiped out most of the infantry. Scores are once again pretty close, 2150 versus 2000. Still, this red side, or the right side over here, is just so weak. And on top of that, these units are being spotted. So something is out here and is having a closer look at these T-72Bs. Speaking of closer looks, Lee Ren are pushing forward. Weapons turned off, lying low, and getting more information on the enemy. At least that's the plan. How exactly he just flew around and deployed a command unit or a reconnaissance unit over here is interesting. That means that Blufor has a thorough lack in their anti-air defenses or reconnaissance section over here. Anyway, as mentioned, newer players. The Leclerc is back in the field. And the Leclerc has something that's spotting for it because it is already taking shots at the BRDM-2. That BRDM-2 was the only reconnaissance unit that Red 4 had on the right flank. There is nothing out here. They have no reconnaissance infantry here. So, again, the T-72Bs, while capable of holding the line, although not against the Leclerc, are utterly outgunned. And they have nothing to be gunning with, because they cannot spot anything. What can spot something is the Liren. The Liren, from something, has spotted something, and that is the German command infantry. He says, wait, don't attack this. Because if you attack it, you do let them know that you know where they are. So let's not. And these Liren are going to come in very, very handy later. Now he does say spot the Leclerc, suicide your T-72. If you do that, try to split them up. Make sure you have one over there and one over there, because otherwise they're both going to start taking fire. Or one witnesses the death of his buddy and might panic. There goes the Leclerc on the right side, AMX-10s on the further left, and we just have a Blue Raven flying over, with not a whole lot that we can do against it. Here comes an airstrike, another Aardvark. And this Aardvark is loaded with cluster bombs. You don't exactly have to hit, just point it in the general direction of the enemy, drop off the load, and you still damage the T-72B. And in a way, you can even use them as scouts. Because you drop your load, and you learn where the sparks fly off the enemy units, or where you destroy them. And with that, you now know where the tank is. Now, interestingly, Blufor has no idea that their units were being spotted. This has to do with the fact that Blufor command unit is just sitting out here in the field next to their truck. Had these guys been in a building and then would have gotten spotted, Blufor would know that their command infantry was in enemy line of sight. At the moment, they don't. So this is a mistake by Defease. And it's small things like this that can cost you the battle. It's small things like, did I put that one unit into concealment? If you didn't, well, this would have been a really helpful nudge saying, hey, there is something spotting you out here. Anyway, Blufor is increasing its lead. Blufor is now at 2,670 versus the 2,000 for Red 4. So these guys definitely have some terrain to close in with. Beats me what the IL-102 is going to do. At any rate, the F-16 intercepted it with a bit of help from another AA unit over there, and that cost them another 200 points. IL-102s are very expensive aircraft and not easy to replace. So the left flank from something is in a fairly stable position. The right side, not so much. He is trying to scout it out with a K-52, and we did see some MX-10s over there. Potentially the Leclerc is still over there, but you don't know. You need more reconnaissance on this flank, because with this little information you cannot make any tactical decisions. He also has a Smirch in the back. The reason why it's this far back is that it needs a minimum range to fire. So you need to keep these things at great range if you want to have them fire somewhere here or there. I think that from over here, or even over there, they would have a minimum range potentially halfway through center. Which is of course nowhere near from where you can actually fire at something or spot anything. Got a new unit being called in, another Z9A, more reconnaissance infantry. And again, the battle is pretty quiet. However, that is about to change as another aardvark comes in. And this aardvark is going directly for the Nonas. He knows where they are. I think he has direct line of sight on it. And to make matters worse, the Akula also got taken down, because they sent in quite a few aircraft. Another Akula bravely tries to defend its honor with a couple of Iglas. Manages to hit a Raven, I think. That was a Raven anyway. Does some damage, but his flank is basically non-existent at this point. It's only a matter of time until Blufor realizes just how weak this is and does something about it. No, not the username. So, while we still have our ace in the hole here, we still have the Liren spotting the command infantry. We don't really have anything that can take it out. Provided that you don't send in an airstrike, of course, because an airstrike that strafes the side of the map and then comes in and drops cargo over there, or drops its payload, could kill it. But he still doesn't want to. Still, though, their loss, or at least Blufor's lead, is increasing. 3,260 versus 2,000. This is going to get painful. You could even argue that the match has already been decided, because they have 50% more points. Now, another problem is about to happen over here. Kiowa Warrior undauntedly pushes forward, and since it is unchallenged, it is capable of nuking the transport. Fortunately, the infantry was not too close to it, although, to be fair, they are a bit worried about what just happened. MiG-912 comes in, takes out the Kiowa, and finally they got another kill. But that could come at, and there it is, grave cost to the MiG-29. Blue is definitely master and commander in the skies. There is nothing that Red 4 has that can shoot down those Blue 4 jets. And I don't mean that they cannot deploy any units that are capable of it. No, they currently don't have anything. They got an HQ-61, but it's out of ammo. PGZ-95, while it has some pretty good missiles, is not in a position where Blufor would attack. They even have A6 intruders flying in. These are jets from 1963. And they're starting to do airstrikes on this town over here, which I suppose is what the intruder was doing in 1963. Anyway, that's a discussion for a whole different day. Conquerors are about to have the fight of their lives, because we got a couple of Humvees coming in. Elite Humvees at that. So there is a very good chance that this is Delta Force. Unfortunately, these Conquerors are not terribly accurate, and these guys are a bit shaken. However, they do get a kill, and that's enough to discourage Florak from pushing in any further. It seems like they want this town. Blufor is definitely eyeing it, but something's going to happen to make sure the infantry gets out of the way first. Still, recon. M16, bring recon. Without recon, you just don't know if those Humvees are going to try it again. We do have some more units being brought in over here. We got one Screzia with infantry. And considering the low numbers of units... Oh, shit. The low numbers of units... This is another indication that these guys don't have enough points to recover from the losses that they got. Interesting kill there. That was a Tornado ECR that got taken out by a short-range air-to-air missile from a Q-5D. Of course, those things are accurate, but you expect these things in a bomber role, not so much in a multi-role. Another Aardvark comes in, this time around with cluster bombs, and another intruder came in, and I think this is the same intruder. Once again, intruding on Red 4 airspace, forgive the pun, it is too easy not to make. And once again, striking this town. Interestingly, while they hit the exact same position as before, the Conquerors this time are unfazed and not actually damaged. The other cluster bomber hits the left side of the town. They do get a bit of shock damage on the infantry, but aside from that, nothing. I'm not sure if that is what he was going for, or if he just doesn't realize that cluster bombs don't do anything against infantry. At any rate, the Conquerors are going to have to make a stand, because once again the Humvees are trying it. And once again the Humvees pull back as they see more ATGMs coming out of the town. VABs are now also being brought in, but fortunately there is some more reinforcements for the spotting team over here. We got another section of Lee Ren. These guys are going to be assisting their Lee Ren brethren, which have already been in position for almost the entire match. Once again, an A6 intruder comes in, but this is not the same guy, actually. The other guy was Tate. This is Turnoff. So he has multiple of these A6s. And it leads me to believe that... I think it's Florak. Florak might be using an airborne deck. Because I saw some M8s. I saw a couple of Delta Force units. I saw a lot of aircraft so far. And I haven't seen anything heavier than that. I haven't seen an M1, for example. No Abrams whatsoever. No heavier support units whatsoever. They seem to be just perfectly happy sending in the lighter units, but with a lot of air power. So I think that we might be dealing with an airborne deck. Now, for the more observant of you, you have probably seen this icon here already, meaning that Red 4 does have a command infantry unit ready. Although getting that in here is going to be quite the challenge. Another A6 intruder comes in, heading all the way over to the left. Where are you going? Oh no, what are you... Huh? Something exploded over there. They got a few points out of that. Yeah, it's an A6B or Prowler. Not an intruder, a Prowler. Flies in, gets killed off. So they finally nuked one of the seeds. They already nuked the second seed over here. And that was the Tornado ECR. That just leaves them with the Raven. The EF-111. Now, these guys still have, I think, an unknown amount of time before they win Blufor. I think this might have been total destruction. Because normally you see this clock counting down. Now you see it counting up. Of course, you can always look at the countdown timer down here and realize that there's 12 minutes left on the replay. So what's going to happen in the last 12 minutes? Well, let's speed things along, because something is going to happen. Air Patrol on station immediately evokes a hefty response. F4F and a Fighting Falcon. This guy unfortunately gets shot down. I think he wasn't even there as a target. F4F, again, just flies completely uncontested over Red 4 lines. 27S tries to take it down. This thing dodges all the missiles, graduate of Top Gun, and just proceeds to evac the area. Nothing that could have damaged this thing over here. No AA, no infantry, nothing. Further support that this could be an airborne deck arrives in the form of an Avenger. Red 4 is maybe not using AA, but Blufor is. Now, Boris has been secured by the enemy, and with that, I think that they realized that at some point something got killed off here, no puns intended this time around, that made them move that infantry over there, that command infantry. So they no longer have line of sight on the infantry. They are still 1400 points behind. There's another longbow coming in. With the fighter not being shot at whatsoever, I think that the longbow is getting pretty bold and is looking forward to having some snacks in the front line. Because, well, the fighter didn't get shot at, so why would he? And for that reason, he just casually hovers the longbow almost in the front line. Again, if this group over here, this team defending the town, would have had AA with it, the longbow would have been dead, but you could argue that the infantry itself would also be dead because it would be evoking more air responses from Blufor. Another helo comes in. I think it's the German anti-tank helo. And again, no AA. If Blufor only knew what they were missing out on here at this opportunity. Instead, they go for a frontal assault right on the town, taking out the missiles and pushing up with a lot of vehicles. Humvees. I think that's a VAB. And there's another section of VABs pushing up here. I gotta say, this is a pretty sight, but normally this would get shut down very hard. If you saw this coming, if you had more recon, you would have easily shut this down. On top of that, he's not even using smoke. So a couple of tanks, backed up by 2 AA units to keep the Akula and the anti-tank helos at bay, would have completely negated what's about to happen. TY-90 pushes in, tries to deal with the enemy helicopters, gets shut down by the VAB 2013s. And these guys, of course, are just the transports. If they drop off their infantry, then this town is completely occupied with Blufor infantry. And it's a very quick and very nice stepping stone to get into Red 4 main base. Now, another unit joins in with the Liren. Yukyonde. Elite forces. These guys, once again, have a lot more firepower than the Liren. They are allowed to fire, and something's going to have to happen quickly with these guys, because this is disaster waiting to happen for Red 4. They push up with a couple of MO-24Ps. Good units, but not capable of defending themselves against something like a Tiger Hap. This thing, armed with 4 Mistrals, takes down one of the helicopters and takes down the other helicopter next. So, unfortunately for him, both helos are dead. Nothing he could do to counter that. Or rather, nothing that he did to counter that. He's deploying some more Scrajets. We got a ZTZ-88A and a Spog. Of course, that longbow is still out there. That longbow has a range of 2800. The Spog has a range of 2800. It's going to be a question of who fires first. A supply truck captured by the enemy. We have active confrontation here with the Liren versus a Flakpanzer Gepard and a cargo truck. And I think they captured a cargo and then Blufor captured it back. At the very least, Blufor now knows that they are being flanked over here. They got units on the side there. Apparently this cargo truck is either too far away or there's still another Blufor unit close to it that's holding it in Blufor's control. And of course there's more airstrikes coming in. The Spark just got shut down by the Raven. They try everything to kill it. But once again, the Su-27 does not get a kill. F4F returns in the battlefield. Tries to fire back, misses both missiles. Another Su-27 comes in. Does finally get a hit. And kills off the F4, but not without taking quite a bit of damage there. And now it's time for the Chinese Yukyonde to push in. There's the command infantry. We just need to get a Jupiter out of the way, and you could argue that you don't even really need to do that, because the Jupiter was posing no threat whatsoever. Now, over here something is making a mistake. I would not be wanting to be on this bridge. They're not even taking fire. Well, yeah, of course, from the MG3 on the Führungsgruppe, but aside from that, not much. Push in, get in a building, and start chasing these guys down. Because now you just gave him a bit of time to get your infantry shaken up, and to get their units a bit more time to reinforce, bring in more stuff. And on top of that, these guys are going to have to now play catch-up with the infantry. Now the Z9 Infantry Command Infantry is deployed. Boris is neutral. That is until these guys start moving around. They're getting themselves into cover. Führungsgruppe has control of the sector. Apache spawns in. Very deadly helicopter against both infantry and vehicles. And it does spot the Liren. The Liren, however, are not allowed to fire. So while they could be doing damage to the Apache, they're not actually doing it. Fortunately, the sector is neutral. A Q-5D flies in, drops on what might be, there we go, the command infantry, or another command unit, kills off the command, and now Red 4 has their sector. Blue 4 only has center left, yes, and of course the whole town. You can immediately see that the Blue 4 command infantry is, or command unit, is being relocated. Liren, this time around, being allowed to fire, are working their way through the Apache. A couple of Rima are either just newly spawned in, just before Red flipped the sector, or they were on their way back. Yukyonde versus Rima, currently in the favor of Yukyonde, and that favor is definitely being confronted, or is definitely being boosted, I should say, with more infantry coming in. WZ551 with this level of infantry is basically a dead giveaway that is going to be Yukyokde or Lishan. So enemy infantry should have a very hard time. M151 ACP comes in, thinks the better of it when it decides, or when it spots that everything else over here is dead, and just turns around and decides that this is maybe not the best time to be pushing up. I think they got 1 or 2 shots off on it, but not a whole lot. You need to chase it down with the 551s. Come on. You got 150 kph road speed, 80 kph off-road. Go! Because you're punching directly into the soft underbelly of Blufor over here. This is usually AA units, artillery, all sorts of support stuff. Now, interestingly, look at the scores. There we go, there's the command unit dead. Look at the scores. Blue 4, 4,765. Red 4, they're still 1,000 points behind. But is that still relevant? Because at the moment, we know that Blue 4 still has a command in Dimitri. Their chances of actually getting that command vehicle back, all the way over here, are fairly slim. It's going to be very difficult for them to get a command into this sector. Not for lack of trying, because of course they do send back whatever they can. They're engaging the T-72Bs over here with the AMX-10s, but really it's not going to happen. So you might have a very nice point lead of almost 1,000 points, or even more at some point, but it is just not going to be enough. Now over here, Red 4 was able to reinforce the sector. We got VDV, we got Luzandui, ZSD-90, Modestrelki, so any push over here should get thwarted, or at least delayed. It would be very interesting to see Blue 4 push through here and then put their own command vehicle into Elena. It has been known to happen, although it is a fairly rare occurrence. T-72B is being pulled back in order to not get killed off by the Leclerc. M8 AGS over here, trying to flank, quite successfully so. This 551 is locked in Mortal Kombat with it. And unfortunately that Mortal Kombat turned out to be deadly to him. And I think that, and this is once again further confirmation bias, this confirms that Florak was using airborne. Because Florak lost all access to his air power. That was the mainstay of his forces. Without that anti-air, or sorry, without that air power, he seems to be struggling to do anything. And sure enough, they're capitalizing on all the infantry and all the vehicles that they have over here. Defiz and Florak, no sorry, it's just Defiz. Defiz is making a push with the the Legion 90. Their transports and the Rima. But of course, this time around, Red 4 is ready. They're capable of holding off this push. Center has been captured, so the command vehicle relocated from Dimitri to center, and it seems to be angling to get in there. But it's going to be hard, especially with the T90S over there. Although, I'm not sure if Blufor knows that they have this unit in here. To make matters worse for Blue, a T72BU spawns in. It's pretty much checkmate at this point. And while the French are still desperately trying to make a push into this area, it's just not going to happen. The Fees surrenders. And Florac is shortly to follow. Something happened. And something won. And it was the unlikely winner. Because these guys got fewer kills than losses. They won the game with more losses on a destruction game. Well done to M16A1 and something. Although, to be fair, something did a hell of a lot more than M16A1. Anyway, that's the game for today. I like these games where you get these weird, unexpected events happening. So if you have another game like that, be sure to send it in. I'm always up for more stuff like that. Now let me send you off before my voice gives out. Have a good day. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I shall see you soon for more videos.